Hello and welcome back to another Torah Tuesday. Today we're continuing our series on the image of God, and we're going to focus in on verse 18 of Genesis chapter 2, where the woman is called Adam's helper. But in order to understand what's going on there, we're going to need to back up to verse 5, where we are introduced to the first problem in this passage. There's two problems in the passage that are introduced into the narrative. We'll talk about both of them. Now in verse 5, it says that no shrub had yet appeared on earth, and no plant had yet sprung up, for Yahweh God had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no one to work the ground. So we have two reasons for the lack of fruitfulness on earth. The first is that God hasn't sent rain, and the second is that there's no human to work the ground. So creation isn't able to be fully realized without the partnership between God and humans. And we learn later in verse 8 that God himself is a gardener. We're told that God planted a garden in the east, and so he can do it without humans, but already we're introduced to this idea that God wants to partner with humans to get the work done. And so verse 5 alerts us to that. Now in verse 7, the problem of the lack of fruitfulness begins to be resolved with the creation of the first human. It says, "Then Yahweh God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being." Here there's a play on words happening in Hebrew that's fun. God creates an Adam from the Adamah, from the dust of the Adamah. So Adamah means ground, Adam means man, or it can be used to mean mankind or humankind. And here we have the combination of dirt and divine breath to make a human. So as humans, we find ourselves kind of in between two worlds. We're made from the dust, and yet we share life and kinship with God. The divine breath gives Adam something different than the rest of creation. In verse 15, God places the man in the garden and gives him a job to do. His job is to work it and to guard it. And immediately he's given food to eat. He can eat freely from any tree in the garden except for one. He's given a command not to eat from a certain tree. So he has a job to do, food to eat, and a command to keep. And that's when we're introduced to the second problem in this creation account. In verse 18 it says, "Yahweh God said, 'It is not good for the Adam to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him.'" Now, all through Genesis 1, as God is creating things, he is calling them good. This is the first moment in the biblical story that we're told that something is not good. And the thing that's not good is the man's loneliness. Loneliness is problematic. He's been given work to do. He needs help doing it. And he's been given a command to keep. And it will be better for him to have companionship so that he can keep that command. So the solution is for God to provide for him an Ezer. Ezer is the Hebrew word for helper. We'll consider what it means in just a minute. In verses 19 and 20, God brings all the animals to the man so that he can name them, again participating in God's creative work. The narrative result of this is the man's realization that none of these animals can be the Ezer. They can't provide the kind of companionship and help that he needs. And so in verse 21, God causes the man to fall into a deep sleep, and he makes a woman. God makes Isha from Ish. So he's a man, and Ish, and out of his body comes an Isha. So similarly, the Adam came from the Adamah. Now the Isha is coming from the Ish. Fun plays on words in Hebrew. The fact that she comes from his side shows us that they have an essential connection with each other, just like the man's essential connection with the ground, because he's made from the ground, she's made from him, so that gives them an essential connection. And it implies that they're supposed to work side by side, no pun intended. But what about her role as Ezer? The word Ezer occurs 90 times in the Old Testament, and what's striking to me, I looked up every single reference in preparation for writing my book, and I discovered that half of those 90 references refer to military allies who come to help someone win a battle. The other half of the references to Ezer refer to God as the helper of Israel. Never in the entire Old Testament is the word Ezer used to describe the work that someone does who is subservient or a servant to someone else. It's always a position of strength, someone helping from a position of strength, someone who's in need. So the first man placed in a garden and given a task and a command needed an ally to help him fulfill it, someone more like him than the animals. So God made a woman to fulfill this role. Why do some people see subservience here? Why, when they read helper, do they read it as a second fiddle, like she's coming alongside underneath him somehow and he's leading? Well, perhaps they rushed ahead to the disastrous consequences of human rebellion in Genesis chapter 3, and they suppose that these consequences are God's intended design. But God didn't desire thorns and thistles, and neither did he desire the domination of women. In fact, he doesn't desire that any human dominate anyone else. The divine intent in creating a woman was to provide companionship and partnership in doing the good work to which God had called the man. And that is the work that you and I have the privilege of participating in as humans. If you want to read more about this, I recommend this book, Half the Church, by Carolyn Custis James, Recovering God's Global Vision for Women. Her point is this: there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the world. We can't sit back and make the men do all the work. We need to partner together. It's going to take both of our brains. It's going to take both of our bodies. It's going to take both of our energy and life in order to see God's good kingdom work being done everywhere that it's needed. So on that note, I hope you have a great week.